What's up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work to Game. I definitely didn't just put a sweatshirt on over the shirt you've been seeing in other videos to make it look like time has passed. It's also because it's cold in this house. We are here to talk today about bans and cheats, the ultimate fight clear. Were they cheaters, and what was going on with the banning or suspension of data miners? Put out that video. You guys have had a overwhelmingly large response. I'm having to pull these comments long before I typically would, because I am recording this video long before it posts. So let's go ahead and kind of dig in on these. The video in general, it's long. The first like 20 minutes is me just kind of explaining what all happened. And then kind of getting to my thoughts. So to kind of sum it up roughly, basically Ultimate got cleared way early by the first team, and there was a gap between them and the second team, and because they went radio silent, which is a reasonably respectful thing to do on its own, some people assumed that they were cheating, and will probably always assume they cheated, and so that kind of resulted in it spiraling out of control. The community lashed out, and certain individuals got to the point that there were death threats, and some of you posted that you didn't think that those death threats were real. I will say that the death threats I saw were not email death threats. They were Twitter death threats. And Twitter death threats are somebody doing it publicly, which tells me they want attention. So I will not be sharing those. You'll just have to take my word for it that I have archived ones on my computer. I would read them, but I literally don't want those words anywhere near my videos. They are appalling. They are dreadful. They are graphic. They are not okay. And yes, they are very real, and they are threatening. I only saw ones threatening content creators and players. I didn't see any threatening data miners or devs, but my understanding is that those went out as well. I know there's a lot of people claiming they got suspended as data miners. Once again, I don't have any way of verifying that. So some of them were verified by so many sources, and you have people like respected members of the Reddit community that are major contributors there saying that they got suspended. It's unlikely that they would just make that up. But as we move to more like obscure references in a comment section, it becomes much harder to tell if maybe somebody's just saying it because they want people to think there's more suspensions and bans going out than there are, or if they really are suspended. I just have no idea. So I'm trying to have a healthy level of skepticism, but also a healthy level of like just trusting that the situation is as bad as it thinks. So let's dive in. Mr. Pulati, the whole that I don't look at the files is ridiculous. I really enjoy seeing the new gear and items to come out. What's the big problem with that? So honestly, this is basically centered on the fact that I said, like, Brian and I don't really spend a lot of time looking at data mined images. Brian and I both live in families and households where gift giving is this more, I guess, like emotional event. So like, and it doesn't mean it's expensive. Like as a kid, like I remember like my sister always handmade her gifts to me. And so I grew up in a family where the kindest way to thank somebody for the gift and the thoughtfulness was for them to see you use their gift or anything like that. So if they give you a book, next time you see them, you need to have at least started reading that book, and you need to tell them what you think. I mean, even if that's a bad thing, just show that effort of like, you gave me something and I used it. And when you get it, that look of surprise, that look of joy, that look of, I'm really thankful that you went out of your way to do this for me is the beginning of that thank you, since it could be some time until the second half, especially when it's something like, I've had family give me, new shoes for hiking because that's what I asked for. Well, I can't go hiking the next day. So like, yes, I will follow back up if I go hiking and say, hey, those shoes were great. But in that moment saying, wow, I had no idea you were going to get me these. I'm really excited. It immediately makes me think there's some places I've been wanting to go hiking and I would love to take these there. That is the beginnings of my thank you. And that can only take place if I don't know that's what they're getting me. Because if I know that's what they're getting me, I'm going to open it and I'm going to go, yep, there's the shoes. And that's it. Now, the person who told me that you're getting me shoes or getting me a new video game for my Switch or getting me whatever, may have gotten my reaction. They may have gotten, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and like book some time to do that. Like, oh my gosh, they're getting me this new game for my Switch. I can't wait to play that. They're getting the beginnings of that thank you, that gift back to them. But then the person who's giving me the gift is not. And so Brian and I, that's just our viewpoint. I don't care that other people have different viewpoints. You do you. So like, I don't personally think data mining is the end of the world. You know, I do the same with leaks around new TV shows, movies, and stuff like that. I don't spend a lot of time reading them. I don't spend a lot of time looking out there for spoilers before the content drops. That's just not for me. But other people it is. And so, you know, the first time I see the new gear and the new items that come out is the live letter. And you guys see our excitement when we post on it. And if I could do that live in front of them, like I know when we got to see the content of the live letter for the media tour, I literally let out a cheer in the room when they announced that they were updating the Mac client. And in a room full of all PC and console players, apparently, I was the only person that made a noise. And later, one of the staff members pulled me aside and said, like, Yoshi P afterwards was really glad to hear somebody cheer. If I had heard that leaked, I wouldn't have had that reaction. I've been like, yep, there it is. And that's not nearly as exciting as like the literal outburst that just spilled out. So that's why. But yeah, I don't care that there's data miners. I just don't. I would prefer that they put it somewhere that it's labeled as spoilers for people that would like to avoid it like me. I think there's some basic consideration there. So if they find story spoilers or whatever, I think there's a reasonable expectation of not only protecting it before the content drops, but even in a brief window after the content drops. There is some debate about when can we start to talk about lore. Usually in most things, you can talk about a movie after it's been out, you know, a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. When you have something like Shadowbringers that takes like 80 hours to clear, how long do you give somebody? I don't know the official rule on that, but definitely don't leak it beforehand, and data mining kind of makes that possible. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. There's no problem with it. It doesn't bother me. Treb, thanks for sharing. Didn't know this was going on. Yeah, I mean, it's a story that breaks on its own. It affects a very small percentage of the population, but it is a very big trend. There aren't that many data miners. There aren't that many ultimate raiders compared to the total number of people that enjoy content in and around Final Fantasy XIV. But they represent a portion of the game that's very important to it overall. The hype that forms around data mining and the hype that forms around Ultimate are incredibly important to the earned media of the game and the health of it being out there. They don't have to go take out ads and say, our game is great. It just takes care of itself because the numbers are there on Twitch, the numbers are there on YouTube, and people are excited about the content. It's easy to want to share Ultimate content when there's something exciting going on. Oh my gosh, did you see that? That was incredible. Having content that makes people want to do that. Did you see that mount that's coming out? I can't wait to get that. Like that sort of thing only exists with content being shared before it drops, or with content that is as aspirational as things like Ultimate. So I think it's important to represent that part of the community, even though Brian and I are not Ultimate Raiders, even though Brian and I are not data miners. It's an important part of the community that we respect and care about. Ray, yes, Final Fantasy XIV is way too slow to start, and with way too many simple fetch quests. Other MMOs start better and attract early on better. So a lot of it's age. Look at when ARR was built. It was a great game for its time. I played it when it was new. It was awesome. I played Classic when it was new. It was awesome. There's a reason Cataclysm went back and simplified a lot of that, and kind of did a squish in some areas. There's a reason that they're changing the level squish in WoW now. These games that have been long running, as opposed to like a Destiny to Destiny 2 where there's a complete reset, or an ESO where you can just skip over things and just move straight to the current content, or a Diablo where you can be power leveled, is that when you have long running narratives like 14, you have to either go back and rewrite content that your current players won't play, or you have to just let it slowly become this sludge. And it was great at its time, but now it has to be gone through. It's just hard. I mean, imagine now that you're an adult, you're out in the world, you got a full-time job, and you have to go back and recomplete K through 12 schooling. I mean, it's impossible. Like, yeah, it wasn't that at the time. but that was your sole focus at the time, and that's the best of school that was available to you at the time. You didn't have a job or anything as an alternative to you. So like, I don't know that that's a perfect metaphor, but like it, a game that was good in 2004, it doesn't mean it was bad just because you don't want to have to play it in 2019 for the first time. You know, it can be good for its time and not be something I want to do now. There's a lot of things I enjoyed in 2004 that I don't enjoy now. We change and mature as people, and I think Shadowbringers is better than ARR. And so, of course, I want people to be able to play Shadowbringers. And if what's stopping them is that ARR is too long, I think we got to find a way to get out in front of that. And it can't just be, well, they should just suck it up because I did it. It's like, well, it's not the same. I did it when it was the best of what was available. I did it when it was one of the best MMO experiences on the market. That is no longer true. So doing it now is harder than when I did it then, even though the content is easier, in my opinion, because it has an aspect of boring and tedium and loneliness now, because you're doing it, you're not going through an experience. Like, who do you share that with? Guys, I just watched the first season of Breaking Bad. It's amazing. Who's excited for you? Nobody. It's old content. So you want people to be caught up, and we have to find a way to do that. Blackwing. I'm a little sad to see the bad side of the Final Fantasy XIV community. I've always felt proud of being part of it, since it's a community that I felt was very understanding, welcoming, and overall nice. Me personally, I've never had problems with the community. Sure, one or two here and there, but that's understandable. So I've always kept in my mind that it's a very close, understanding community that truly puts effort into making everybody playing the game feel well received. Unfortunately, this is already like the third incident in which the community's bad side has come to shine. First, I remember Lazy Peon receiving death threats because of his criticism of the game, which is ridiculous because even though I disagreed with most of his review, it's still his review. Then Scott Zone was banned for some time because he lost his cool over quite a lot of fans of Final Fantasy XIV, criticizing him over some very valid points he made in regards to the newest raid that came out. And now this. Look, if you're reading this and you're one of the people that does this type of things, stop doing them. Your tastes and your opinions won't change if somebody else thinks badly of the game. Even if you're passionate over Final Fantasy XIV, instead of concentrating on silencing the voices that feel the game is bad, think of all of us who are fans just like you that love the game. Opinions can be different. Don't let yours be the reason to bully someone else. I think this was very well written. It 100% hits the sentiment on its head. It doesn't take that many bad incidents to make everybody look bad. It doesn't make that many bad incidents before we have to say things like, this is why we can't have nice things. Step back and say, would I read this aloud to my parents and be proud of it? And step back and B, say, is this going to create positive change? How does the world get better if you threaten somebody into no longer creating? Having less creators, does that make the game better? Like, you didn't have to watch them. So if there's 10 creators out there and there's now 9 because of you, how is that better? Like, that doesn't... I think people find it shocking that Brian and I are so welcoming of other creators. Like, it takes something away from us. That's just not how YouTube works. It's a collaborative thing. More creators is better. Honestly, more creators makes us more views. So even from a selfish standpoint, when Larry Czar would post something on a subject that we also covered, it takes him so long to make a video that you want to watch videos more often than he posts. So when he posts, it makes our videos go on that same subject get views. So even from a selfish standpoint, more creators is better. More players is better. People complain about DPS queue times and then they want players of a certain type to quit. What? It doesn't make any sense. I just, in general, I have trouble finding any reasoning. And I think that somebody has to be closed-minded to all logic to stay locked into that viewpoint. The world is just grayer than that. I just don't think that I'm that locked into that many opinions I have in general. I feel like, okay, there's 2 here, I can see both sides, and I think I'm leaning about here. But I really don't live all the way on either end, because it just doesn't make any sense to not at least hear the other side out. I think that your understanding in a concept and your faith in your own beliefs gets stronger with education, not weaker. Challenging them in a healthy and discussion-minded way gives you a chance to explore your own thoughts and understand them deeper. It doesn't mean you have to like them or not like what was said. You know, if somebody who's on a different end of a political spectrum than you, for example, can logically and reasonably explain why they're coming from where they're coming from, you can now have a deeper understanding of where you're coming from, even if you don't budge an inch. And you're better for it. You now at least understand where they're coming from, so you at least understand why people disagree with you. And in addition to that, you say, you know what, but that actually makes me even further feel this way. And that's okay. That's more information. So I just don't see where just blindly threatening somebody in the name of a video game or in the name of developers that you feel are slighted when they don't feel slighted doesn't make any sense. Especially around like the Scott Zone thing, like these views coming from WoW and all that. Like, I don't think people realize how close the relationship between Yoshi P's team and WoW is. Japan very much acts as the publishing arm of Blizzard in Japan. Square Enix does, and it just doesn't. His players play WoW. Before they ever made changes to 14, they played 14. They play games to understand them, and they say, "Here's things we like. Here's things we don't like. How do we learn from it?" They don't lock themselves in a big steel tube and say, "I don't want to hear about anything else. I just want to think of my own thing." They want the gaming industry as a whole to be coming out with great games alongside theirs. It's just better. So I wanted to kind of touch on that. So, Rye, hard for data miners, hopefully only suspended. Will this lead to an ACT ban? Actually good. If ACT gets removed, they're still misused and they're a cancer for some. It would be good to play without triggers. I think there's a huge difference between playing with ACT at an ultimate level in a progression world first group and having an ACT in a leveling roulette and throwing it in someone's face. ACT it is a tool on its own, just like any other. It is a hammer. So when you have a hammer and you have a nail, that hammer is a whole lot better than your fist. And it's wonderful. And so in a progression environment, it tells you things like who's performing, who's not performing, as they move through the content, what's it doing to their DPS. If you know they're a good performer and you see their DPS dropping, ask yourself, is there a better way to handle that mechanic? It's an incredibly valuable tool to look at how much healing is this taking, who's taking the damage, who's dealing the damage. It's a great metric. But just like that hammer can be used on things that are not nails, such as other people, taking a hammer into a leveling roulette and throwing it in someone else's face is a lot like taking that hammer to a stranger. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't achieve anything, and it's incredibly bad for you and the community. It just reflects poorly on the hammer. It reflects poorly on the person using the hammer, and it just makes the person that got hit with the hammer not want to play this game. I played that game. I got hit with a hammer. That's terrible. Yes, ACT on its own is not the problem. It's an agnostic tool. It means nothing. It's not good. It's not bad. It's nothing. It's neutral. It's nothing. As for ACT's triggers, so the idea that people can kind of build a DBM for world first, just be aware that there isn't a DBM out there that's going to tell them about mechanics that they've never seen before. Even if you data mined the tooltips to abilities, knowing the timings between phases and stuff is just not something they can do. Knowing how your group comp needs to get through certain phases where there's a certain number of damage soaks or there's certain things to get in a stack on or spread out or move bombs to or split up or share DPS or split DPS. Data mining doesn't fix all that, especially for your individual group. And you can hear Ultimate Raiders in some of these interviews. Go watch them with Frosty and whoever else. I think they were on Happy's podcast and all that. Go listen to them talk about how you'll hear people talk about how their strategy is not the optimal strategy, but it's the one that works for them. So having a DBM, even if you were able to program it as you go, kind of like building your own crafting macro, you can kind of say, okay, I start every craft with the button that I have bound to 7. So let's go ahead and start building a macro, and we'll say press 7. And then I realize, man, I pretty consistently seem to push 2 after 7. Press 7, then press 2. Man, it really seems to work out well when I push 3 after 2. Okay, push 7, then 2, then 3. And you keep going down that until you eventually have a crafting macro. That is a way to build a crafting macro. It's not nearly as optimal as people who sit down with all the numbers and work it out or build a simulator. And it's not as optimal, just like in Ultimate, if they were to build a DBM as they went, it would not be as accurate as people who now know the fight in its entirety and can go optimize for it. After weeks and weeks of clearing it, those strategies are better. They are cleaner. Once they understand the content. So building it as you go is not as good as the strategies that come out later, in addition to the fact that you risk inputting bad information. When we avoided that bomb, we lived. Therefore, avoiding the bomb is good. Maybe. But what happens if there's ever a fight where having one person die is good? Or what if there's ever a fight where having a certain amount of damage going out is good? When you look back at historic, like mythic raid bosses in WoW or historic Ultimate fights, there are times when pushing a phase too fast is a bad thing. That's where that famous stop dots comes from. There are times when that sort of thing matters. And so having a DBM that just says push buttons harder because that's what you taught it to do doesn't actually do you any favors. So I don't. It's just a tool. It's just like the fact that you're seeing raid groups more and more have that 9th and 10th man, that kind of that bonus 1 or 2 people who are not even logged into the game, but can look down without having to worry about their rotations and where they're standing and gauge what's going on by looking at a screen share of someone else's perspective. Looking over, I think in Method's case, they were literally looking over their shoulder, calling things out for people. It's no different than that. You're just building a tool to do it instead of a person. It's nothing. It's neutral on its own. I guess best case, you could say somebody who bans ACT for the purpose of removing that as a job creator. I don't know. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. You're welcome to have your own. I know there's no end to the debate of whether or not this game should have ACT in it, and there's a reason it's against the terms of service, but there's also a reason that it's not enforced. So to answer your question, will this indirectly lead to an ACT ban? I don't think so. I could see them releasing a statement that they don't want it on streams anymore. I could see a reason that they don't want it, like YouTube videos on how to turn on ACT and stuff. But the idea that a community doesn't want to find a way to track its own damage, it'll always be there. Michael Rivers, I'll be among the first. Ultimate content was and shall forever be a mistake, period. Ultimate content, I will humbly disagree with you. Maybe even not even humbly. I don't know that I'm the humble one here on the channel. It's good for the game. Outright. Having hard content. My biggest complaint about Ultimate content is that we only get 2 of them. And I understand why. They've gone over it in plenty of depth. We need more of it, not less. More of it would help us build a community around it instead of these groups kind of falling apart because they only have to do this fight every year. So having an Ultimate each step along the way, I think would be good for the game. Having people have that depth of knowledge of the system and that level of play is good for all of us. And that knowledge of how to play the game can kind of trickle down and make the server better as a whole. I think it's a good thing. We can all disagree, and there's no way to spin up a parallel universe where you give a game, 1 Ultimate every patch, and you give a game no Ultimates and see which one is better after X number of expansions, with that being the only thing different. So since we don't have that ability, there's no way to know. But my thought is that Ultimate content is and shall forever be a good thing for Final Fantasy, and Mythic raids are good for WoW under the same note. Hardcore content is good. Aspirational content is good. Even if I never get to take part in it, I never get to clear it. Even if you never get to take part in it, you never get to take clear in it. It is good. Thomas, does ACT shown in my own streams mean I can be banned for this? Technically, you always could have been. The question is now that they show a propensity for enforcing things off platform. Does that increase the risk factor? Yes. Do I think they're going to go out and just start checking every single stream? No. So without knowing your Twitch name or whatever, I don't know. If you're streaming to 9 people, 50 people, you're probably fine. And that there's a benefit to the anonymity of being a smaller streamer. When Brian and I stream, our audiences are not Mr. Happy's size. The question is, will they start enforcing it on people like Xeno, Happy, these bigger streamers? Because it seemed here that they wanted to make an example of the incredibly public ones, not that they wanted to large scale go through and ban any and everybody. Hitting the people who fuel the data mine community for the Reddit and the Reddit Discord, it actually knocks out a ton of data mining in one go. Because anybody that data mines with them suddenly may stop, or at least stop kind of posting it. Berserker. Also, I don't know about the other streamers before the patch dropped, but Xeno was already showing off the data mined Alexander weapons on live stream, so on Twitch. So I'm guessing anyone who shows it before the patch drops, people will be accusing of the data miner cheater. Yes, people will definitely be accusing you if you're showing or talking about data mined info. But more importantly now, it is possible that Square Enix is aware of you. So just kind of be aware of that. Enjoy it at your own risk. There will still be people who talk about it. There will still be people who get excited on it. There will probably still be YouTube videos on it. There will still be a place for it. It's just going to be harder to find than it was before. Brian and I already didn't post on it, but I've kind of explained why, so that it doesn't really change us per se. But you may notice the tone around data mined info being shifted, just like you may see streamers kind of beat around the bush. Yeah, I heard it did look really cool. If they end up kind of enforcing that. If not, they'll look at it. Michael, I wasn't even aware there was a hardcore raiding scene in 14 before I watched this video. That is the problem with not having enough ultimates, is that anybody who says, I have friends that play that game, but I won't play it because I need a hardcore PvE scene, and the game that I play, insert X here, has one, and this game does not, that's the problem. The fact that it's just like PvP, it's a chicken and an egg thing. Our PvP is almost memeable at how crappy it is, but a lot of that hinges on the fact that we don't have enough people playing it. So a lot of my issues with PvP is the wait times and the fact that I get put against the same people over and over, and the fact that the balancing isn't perfect. But all of that would be fixed if there was a larger player population doing it. They could balance better against a larger data pool, and I would have shorter wait times, and I would play against different opponents, and different strategies would form if there was a larger player base. But there can't be a larger player base without those things, but without those things, there can't be a large player base, and it just forms this circle. So yes, a hardcore raiding scene can only be fueled by hardcore raiding content. So we only get 2 ultimates per expansion. They've hinted sometimes that we're going to get 3, and we just never do. So basically it works out to about once a year. Jack, the bans had nothing to do with the death threats. One of the guys was banned before any world first clear or death threat. Square Enix may have been asking for people to not data mine for a while now, and has been very lenient up until this point. The data miners failed to respect the wishes of the dev team, and now they're enforcing bans. I do agree the controversy between them has been going on and on. It appears from the timing that this seems to have made it worse. As opposed to just not affecting it at all. It is interesting to hear that somebody was banned. If you have like a copy of that ban email, or like a way that we can kind of form that kind of timestamp timeline, it would be interesting to see how many people were banned, when they were banned, and what they were banned for. I haven't seen any hard evidence. I've seen people posting in comment sections and threads on various websites such as Reddit, but it takes me no effort to go out to Reddit and just put up a comment. I don't have to back it up or anything like that. So I don't want to go out and spread like the official, carved in stone way it happened without at least multiple sources of the same information, if possible. They've been very lenient. They've been lenient with all sorts of things. And so it's interesting to see them get stricter. I think when they get stricter about something we don't like, let's say RMT, for example, we're all like, "Yay!" And when they get strict about something that we're glad they've been lenient on, we're like, "Oh, no. You've always had the ability to punish people for saying mean things in chat, but now you're punishing people for your definition of mean, and you're doing it a lot. I don't like that." So it's the perspective seems to drastically change our thoughts on it. I don't know if that's unique to the 14 community. That's just a statement on humans in general. I am just as guilty of it. Luke, do you think thoughts per second cheated? Yes, I do. A 3-day gap is long. However, I think they used their third-party software to do it, and that's why they haven't been caught. Which, if they did it well, is on their heads and not ours. WoW has death threats. Most MMOs do, because ultimately players can't shut their mouths, and while they're typing behind a keyboard, people find a newfound confidence. Now, the issue is bigger than the sudden death threats and It brings up the point of bullying that exists from PvPers because a person didn't follow your command. Hunt mark farms a random player. Just came across a hunter's mark and killed it. Savage raid. Raiders who run content with casuals thinking they're this elite or god when you're below them. If you mess up, your damage isn't high enough. And casuals who just want to watch the world burn. Final Fantasy XIV has a huge bullying issue, and it was always there. People just tend to turn a blind eye to it because it's just standard MMO community being the community. My view on the bans reduction is I feel Square Enix said was a warning out of good faith, a last chance, so to speak. If you don't stop, we will go through it and you will be banned. They've always been known to give their player base the benefit of the doubt. That last part is the key here. They have always not only given them the benefit of the doubt, but they've done it to the point where we actually don't even agree. They've done it in general to the point where, like, you notice that the word suspension was used a lot more than ban. So even if you feel that somebody deserves something, typically it's a suspension, not a ban. I've had botters reach out to me via different ways to kind of comment on our thoughts on botters and kind of explain their perspective of things. And I respect, I thank them for doing that. And a lot of those continued conversations when I have questions about what this means for botters or what this means for them, while I may not have the desire to bot, it's interesting to have their perspective. And the reason they give me their perspective is that I respect that I'm not going to just go turn them in to Square for breaking terms of service. Because they're breaking terms of service, and they know it. And they know from my thoughts, both publicly and in the conversations with them, that if they get banned, that people like me won't feel bad for them. Because if you do something wrong, I won't feel bad for you. When I drive my car, I'm not going to say I've never gone over the speed limit. And if I go over the speed limit and I get a ticket, I don't want anybody to feel bad for me. I broke the rule. It was plainly stated, plainly marked. I knew I was doing it. Yes. It is possible every time I choose to do that I will get a ticket. I don't want pity. I don't want I don't want a warning. Just give me the ticket. Now I don't want the punishment to suddenly change. Oh, did we not mention that's now jail time? Whoa. The only reason I was even willing to consider doing it when I was in a hurry or it was just a beautiful day on a nice open road or whatever, is that I know it's a monetary fine and it will, for a short time, increase my insurance if I don't go do defensive driving. So I know that that's a punishment that if I have to, I can swallow. I don't want to. And so I can take that risk. And then I will probably drive slower until that thing falls off, if I need to do deferred adjudication or whatever. So it's the same thing here. If people want to break the rules, they just need to know what the punishment is. It needs to be clearly stated and it needs to be clearly enforced. I don't think they cheated. I think that the timeline is not that long. And I think people are overlooking the fact that like this group of people has had world seconds, world thirds, and so on. They don't always get first. I don't even think they ranked on Eden Savage turn 1. And I think it was first, second, third on 2, 3, and 4 in that order. So you want to look at kind of the history there, and if they were so good at cheating, why is this not always the case? What would kind of fix this is if we had more hard-end content, so we could see a trend. Oh my gosh, I don't think they're doing anything that the other top groups weren't doing, and I don't think they're doing anything that that Square Enix hasn't tolerated. So like, are they using data mined? If they have tool tips that are out there, yeah, probably on abilities. But that I'm trying to figure out how to say this. So like, steroids don't make you a good athlete. They're against the rules. They're bad for the game because they're against the rules. Now, yes, there is a whole health discussion separate from that, but you will hear some professional athletes say in interviews that the reason they don't do them is because they're against the rules. Because they're against the rules, it's non-negotiable. So they don't even have to ask themselves, would I take them if they were for the rules? Because it doesn't matter. Now, maybe if they made them allowed, that player would have to then say, okay, do I want to have the following effects to my body in trade for the following side effects to my body, right? And they would have to make that call. But until that day, it doesn't matter because the answer is no. So there are plenty of guys who don't make it to the big leagues that use steroids. So on its own, saying that these people are not incredible players is patently false, because even if they had information that someone else didn't, they would have had to execute on it. In addition to the fact that I don't think they did. I don't think they had access to anything that the top end groups didn't. Their data miner would have to data mine a tooltip that was so pivotal, so crucial, that they got to act on it, and no other group had that data mined info. That's just not how that works. There was a boss in WoW, I think back during Lich King, that like nobody could clear, and then out of nowhere, a group that had never gotten a world first out of China got the clear. It happens. It does. And this isn't even a group that's totally unexpected. Some of these players have been in world first groups for years. These are incredible players. They know their class. They know their stuff. They know the content. They know the way these devs think. They're good at solving this. And I don't know. I just don't think they cheated. I don't know. But I've been wrong before. Until I see hard evidence, I'm going to continue giving them the benefit of the doubt. So that is the end of that. This was a much longer video. I was also commenting on a lot of comments on a long video. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the longer formats. We're trying to get a chance to kind of dive deeper than just picking like the most popular comments. The only way to do that is to pick more comments over more time. So hopefully you guys are liking these. Let us know if you'd let us go back to 5-minute posts or whatever. If we see an overwhelming response that way, we'll consider it. Right now, you guys seem to like it. The algorithm seems to like it. We like making them. So, that's 3 for 3. So there's no reason to not keep making longer videos. My name's Chris with Work to Game. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, it's me. Thanks so much for watching this video. You should click here to subscribe and here to maybe check out some more of our videos. So again, thanks for watching. We hope you like this video. We hope you subscribe and join our community. Let us know in the comments below what you think, and we'll see you next time. Bye.